certified sommelier Beverly Crandon, and welcome to the Wine Down, where we try to make all things about wine highly approachable. And in today's session, we're going to be talking about the difference between Syrah and Shiraz. Now, this grape has been known to confuse some, especially those who are new to wine. And let me just break it down for you on what the basic difference is, okay? The grape originated in France, and it is called Syrah from there. Syrah. In Australia, same grape, different name, it is called Shiraz. As a matter of fact, mostly around the world outside of Australia, you'll see it being called Syrah. Here's a correction though. South Africa, you'll also see it being called Shiraz. So mostly Syrah, Australia, South Africa, Shiraz. Same grape, two different names. But although it's the same grape, there are a bunch of differences between what you get in a Syrah versus what you get in a Shiraz. And we're going to talk about that. But first, how did Syrah even get to Australia? Syrah got to Australia thanks to Scottish viticulturalist James Busby in the 1830s. James Busby is often called the father of Australian viticulture too. So he brought the vine cuttings of Syrah from Europe obviously to Australia, and then the cuttings stayed in the Sydney Botanical for quite some time, but by the end of the 1830s, they then were brought to southern Australia. So now that we know that Syrah comes from a cool climate and Shiraz from a warmer climate, let's talk about the differences that you find, because climate definitely does play a factor. So your Syrah coming from that cool climate, think Rhône Valley, what you're going to find, as you do with normal cool climate wines, is a more restrained wine on the palate. You know, you're going to get more acidity here versus the Shiraz, cooler climate, but you're also going to get firm tannins. But Syrah has a profile that'll make you think you're at a lovely dinner. You're going to get things like black pepper, black cherry, smoked meat, a lot of earthy herbal notes on that. It is quite delicious and a lovely, lovely drink. Great age-worthiness as well. With your Shiraz coming from a warmer climate, as you can expect, those grapes are going to be riper, meaning a little bit more sweeter. So you're probably going to find more alcohol on your Shiraz than you would your Syrah. While the Shiraz will have an element of acidity, it's not going to be that racing acidity you find in your Syrah from cool climate, but you will get some. And great winemakers in those warm regions are balancing out that mouth feel. So you've got the alcohol, but you've got some acidity there to balance that out. So it's not one thing punching you in the face. But with your warm climate Shiraz, think very ripe fruit, luscious fruit on the palate, chocolate, oak integration. You might notice some of that oak on there, but think more of a bigger wine on the palate, and definitely higher alcohol. Now, before we close, let's talk a little bit about winemaking. Where you see your Syrah, you're generally going to see that it's likely going to be blended with Grenache and Mourvedre, but 80% of what's in that bottle has to be Syrah. When you come down to Australia, you're generally going to see single varietal bottling of Shiraz. All right, we're at the end. So some key takeaways for you. Remember, Syrah and Shiraz are the exact same grape, genetically proven to be so, just two different names. And also, they differ based on climate, Syrah cooler climate, Shiraz warmer climate, and winemaking style. Right? So when you think Syrah, think peppery notes, think great acidity, think firm tannins, think that lovely smorgasbord of a meal. When you think Shiraz, think higher alcohol, riper fruit, a round mouth feel. That's the type of thing you're going to get with Shiraz. And there you have it. That's the Wine Down, where today we talked about the differences between Syrah and Shiraz. Now I'm going to get my Syrah on. I'm a little thirsty. Listen, I always say that great wine will tell the story of people, place, and passion. And you know what? Syrah/Shiraz reminds us that tradition and innovation can share the same vine.